The sliding glass doors of Stellar Electronics opened with a soft whoosh as Lisa Hayes stepped inside. The cool air hit her face, a welcome relief from the hot afternoon sun of Neo Angeles. She pulled her worn jacket closer around her shoulders and looked around the store. The place was huge. Bright white walls stretched up to the ceiling, lined with the newest technology from across the galaxy. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing off the latest quantum computers and starship parts. Everything looked expensive and shiny. Lisa walked slowly through the first aisle. Her dark eyes moved carefully over each item on display. She stopped at a quantum processor unit and leaned in close to read the technical details. Her fingers traced the air above the device as she studied its design. "Can I help you?" The voice was sharp and cold. Lisa looked up to see a man in a blue uniform standing behind her. His name tag read, Kevin Walsh, store manager. He was tall and pale, with short brown hair and narrow eyes that looked at her with suspicion. "Just looking, thank you," Lisa said with a polite smile. Kevin did not smile back. His eyes moved up and down, taking in her old jacket, faded jeans, and worn sneakers. "This is expensive equipment. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Lisa felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. She had experienced this before, many times. But she kept her voice calm and steady. "Yes, I know where I am. I'm interested in your quantum processing units." Kevin crossed his arms. "Those units cost more than most people make in a year. Maybe you should look at something more suitable for your budget." "I understand the cost," Lisa replied. She moved to the next display case where several holographic projectors were arranged in a neat row. These were the kind used on starships for navigation systems. She examined them with the same careful attention. Kevin followed her. She could feel his eyes on her back as she moved from display to display. When she stopped to look at a neural interface unit, he stepped closer. "Excuse me, miss. I need to ask you to open your bag." Lisa turned around slowly. "Why?" "Store policy. Random security checks." Lisa knew this was not true. She had been in many stores and no one had ever asked her to open her bag for a random check. But she opened her small backpack anyway and held it out to him. Kevin looked inside quickly. It contained only a water bottle, a small notebook, and a pen. Nothing else. His face showed disappointment. "Fine," he said. "But I'm watching you." Lisa continued walking through the store. She stopped at a display of advanced sensor arrays. These were the kind used to detect enemy ships in space. She knelt down to get a better look at the connection ports and power systems. "Hey, don't touch the displays," Kevin called out from across the store. "I'm not touching anything," Lisa called back. She was careful to keep her hands away from the equipment, but Kevin was already walking toward her with quick, angry steps. "You've been acting suspicious since you got here, looking at all the most expensive items, taking notes." Lisa looked down at her hands. She was not taking notes. She had not even touched her notebook. "I'm just shopping." "For what? You haven't asked about prices. You haven't asked any questions about what these things do. You just keep staring at them like you're planning something." Other customers in the store started to notice the conversation. A few stopped their own shopping to watch. Lisa felt their eyes on her and wished she could disappear. "I'm just interested in the technology," she said quietly. "Right. And I suppose you know all about quantum processors and neural interfaces?" Kevin's voice was getting louder. Lisa hesitated. The truth was that she did know about these things. She knew about them very well, but she had learned that sometimes it was better not to say too much. "I know a little," she said. Kevin laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "A little? Sure you do. Look, I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not stupid. Nobody comes in here and looks at this stuff unless they're planning to buy it or steal it, and you definitely don't look like someone who can afford it." Lisa felt her face grow hot with embarrassment and anger, but she kept her voice calm. "I have not stolen anything. I have not touched anything. I am just looking." "We'll see about that." Kevin pulled out his communication device and pressed a button. "Security? This is Kevin at Stellar Electronics. I need an officer here right away. I have a suspicious person in my store." Lisa's heart started beating faster. This is not necessary. I haven't done anything wrong. Save it for the security officer, Kevin said. He positioned himself between Lisa and the front door. You're not leaving until they get here. The other customers were openly staring now. Some were whispering to each other. Lisa heard fragments of their conversations. What did she do? Manager thinks she's a thief. Should have known she didn't belong here. Lisa stood very still and waited. She thought about leaving, but Kevin was blocking her path. She thought about arguing more, but she knew it would only make things worse. So she waited. 10 minutes later, a security officer arrived. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and tired eyes. His uniform was dark blue with the badge of Colonial Security. His name tag read, Officer Jake Miller. What's the problem here? Officer Miller asked. Kevin pointed at Lisa. This woman has been acting suspicious, following a pattern consistent with shoplifting behavior, examining high-value items, taking mental notes, avoiding staff interaction. Officer Miller looked at Lisa. She could see him taking in her appearance just like Kevin had done, but his expression was different. He looked uncertain, like he did not really want to be there. Miss, can you tell me what you were doing in the store? He asked. Shopping, Lisa said simply. For what? Lisa looked around the store, at the quantum processors and holographic displays, at the sensor arrays and neural interfaces, at all the technology that had become so familiar to her over the years. I was looking at the quantum processing units, she said, and the holographic projectors. I'm interested in how they work. Officer Miller nodded slowly. Do you have identification? Lisa reached into her backpack and pulled out her ID card. Officer Miller took it and looked at it carefully. Lisa Hayes, age 24, residence listed as Neo Angeles Colony District 7. Miss Hayes, the store manager believes you were planning to steal merchandise. Do you have anything to say about that? Lisa looked at Kevin, who was standing with his arms crossed and a satisfied expression on his face. Then she looked back at Officer Miller. I was not planning to steal anything, she said. I was just looking. Officer Miller seemed to think for a moment. Then he sighed. I'm sorry, Miss Hayes, but I'm going to have to ask you to come with me to the station. We need to sort this out properly. Lisa nodded. She had expected this. She had been through it before, though never quite like this. As Officer Miller led her toward the door, Lisa turned back to look at Kevin one more time. He was watching with obvious satisfaction, probably thinking he had done a good job protecting his store. If only he knew, Lisa thought to herself. If only he knew who he had just arrested. The Colonial Security Station was a large gray building in the center of Neo Angeles. Officer Miller led Lisa through the front doors and past a busy lobby filled with people waiting on metal benches. The sound of their footsteps echoed on the hard floor. Lisa kept her hand steady as Miller removed the handcuffs. Her wrists were sore, but she did not complain. She had remained quiet during the ride in the security vehicle, thinking about what would happen next. This way, Miss Hayes, Miller said. He led her to a small room with a desk and 2 chairs. I need to process you into the system. Standard procedure. Lisa sat down in the metal chair. It was cold and uncomfortable. Miller sat across from her and pulled out a tablet computer. Full name, he asked. Lisa Marie Hayes. Age? 24. Miller typed the information into his tablet. Place of birth? Detroit, Michigan. Old Earth. Miller looked up from his tablet. Old Earth? That's a long way from here. What brought you to Neo Angeles? Work, Lisa said simply. Miller nodded and continued typing. I need to take your biometric scan now. Please place your hand on the scanner. Lisa placed her right hand on the small black device Miller held out. A blue light scanned her palm and fingers. The device beeped once, then twice. Then it started beeping very fast. Miller frowned and looked at the screen. His expression changed from bored to confused. That's strange. Let me try again. Lisa placed her hand on the scanner a second time. The same thing happened. Fast beeping, then a loud alarm sound that made Miller jump. What the hell? Miller muttered. He looked at his tablet screen, which was now flashing red. Words appeared across the screen. Alert, classified identity, level Omega clearance required. Miller stared at the screen for several seconds. Then he looked at Lisa, who sat calmly in her chair as if nothing unusual was happening. "Miss Hayes, I need to ask you to wait here for a moment," Miller said. His voice sounded different now, less confident. "Don't go anywhere," Lisa nodded. "I'll wait." Miller left the room quickly. Lisa could hear him talking to someone in the hallway, but she could not make out the words. His voice sounded worried. 5 minutes later, the door opened again. This time a woman in a dark blue uniform entered. She was older than Miller, with short blonde hair and sharp green eyes. The badges on her uniform showed that she was a captain. "Miss Hayes, I'm Captain Amy Foster," the woman said. She sat down, across from Lisa, and studied her face carefully. "We seem to have a problem with our computer system. It's saying some very strange things about your identity." "What kind of strange things?" Lisa asked. Captain Foster looked down at her tablet. "It says your identity is classified at the highest level, level Omega. I've been with Colonial Security for 15 years, and I've never seen a level Omega classification before." Lisa said nothing. "It's also asking for clearance codes that I don't have," Foster continued, "and it's blocking me from accessing any information about you beyond basic identification." "I see," Lisa said. Foster leaned forward in her chair. "Miss Hayes, I'm going to ask you directly. Who are you?" Lisa looked at the captain for a long moment. Then she said, "I think it would be better if you contacted Fleet Command. Ask for Admiral Chen." Foster's eyebrows went up. "Admiral Chen? Grace Chen? Head of Colonial Fleet Operations?" "Yes. You want me to call the most powerful person in the colonial military because of a shoplifting arrest?" "I think that would be best," Lisa said calmly. Foster stared at her. Lisa could see the captain's mind working, trying to figure out what was happening. Outside in the hallway, Lisa could hear voices getting louder. Someone was asking questions about the alert that had been triggered. "Captain Foster?" Officer Miller's voice came through the door. "Kevin Walsh is here, the store manager. He wants to know what's happening with his arrest." Foster looked annoyed. "Tell him to wait in the lobby. He's being pretty insistent. Says he wants to make sure the shoplifter gets properly charged." Lisa saw Foster's jaw tighten. The captain stood up and opened the door. "Miller, get Walsh out of here. Tell him this is an ongoing investigation and he needs to wait for updates." "But, Captain," he says, "I don't care what he says. Get him out of my building. Now." Miller's footsteps moved away down the hall. Foster closed the door and sat back down. "Miss Hayes, I'm going to ask you one more time. What should I know about you before I make that phone call?" Lisa considered her options. She could continue to say nothing and wait for Admiral Chen, or she could give Foster enough information to understand the situation. She decided on a middle path. "Captain Foster, I work for the colonial government. My work is classified. The system is responding correctly to my biometric scan." "What kind of work?" "The kind that requires level Omega clearance." Foster was quiet for a moment. Then she picked up her communication device. "This is Captain Foster at Neo Angeles Security Station. I need to speak with Admiral Chen immediately. Priority Alpha." Lisa watched as Foster waited for the connection. It took several minutes. When Admiral Chen's voice finally came through the device, Foster straightened up in her chair. "Admiral, this is Captain Amy Foster. I have a situation here that requires your attention. I have someone in custody who claims to know you. Her name is Lisa Hayes." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Admiral Chen's voice came through, sharp and urgent. "Lisa Hayes? You have Dr. Lisa Hayes in custody?" "For what?" Foster looked at Lisa with wide eyes. "Doctor?" "Captain Foster, listen to me very carefully," Admiral Chen's voice continued. "You are to release Dr. Hayes immediately. No charges, no record, and I want to know exactly how this happened." Admiral, she was arrested for suspected shoplifting. Shoplifting? Admiral Chen's voice was getting louder. Someone arrested Dr. Lisa Hayes for shoplifting? Captain, do you have any idea who you're talking to? Foster looked at Lisa again. Lisa sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, watching the captain's face change as the reality of the situation began to sink in. No, Admiral, I don't. Dr. Hayes is the most important scientist in the colonial government. She has clearance levels higher than mine, higher than anyone's except the Colonial Council itself. Foster's face went pale. Admiral, I had no idea. I'm on my way. Do not let anyone else talk to Dr. Hayes. Do not let anyone leave the building who was involved in this arrest. And Captain? Yes, Admiral? Someone is going to answer for this. The communication device went quiet. Foster stared at it for a moment, then looked at Lisa. Dr. Hayes, I am so sorry. If I had known... Lisa held up her hand. It's not your fault, Captain. You were doing your job. Foster stood up quickly. Please, let me get you some coffee, or water, whatever you need. I'm fine. But I think you should bring Officer Miller back in here, and I think Kevin Walsh should stay exactly where he is. Foster nodded rapidly. Of course, whatever you need. As Foster left the room, Lisa finally allowed herself a small smile. In the lobby, Kevin Walsh was probably still waiting to see her charged with theft. He had no idea that his world was about to change completely. Admiral Grace Chen arrived at the Neo Angeles security station in less than 2 hours. Her transport ship landed on the building's roof with a loud roar that shook the windows. Captain Foster watched from her office window as 3 military vehicles pulled up to the front entrance. Admiral Chen was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She wore a dark uniform covered with medals and ribbons. When she walked into the security station, everyone stopped what they were doing and stood, at attention. Where is Dr. Hayes? Admiral Chen asked Captain Foster. She's in room 3, Admiral. She's been waiting for you. Admiral Chen nodded and walked quickly down the hallway. Foster followed behind her, feeling nervous. In the lobby, Kevin Walsh jumped up from his seat when he saw the Admiral. Excuse me, are you here about my arrest? I'm the one who called security. I caught the shoplifter red-handed. Admiral Chen stopped and looked at Kevin. Her expression was cold and angry. You are Kevin Walsh? Yes, that's me. I manage Stellar Electronics. I did exactly what I should have done when I saw suspicious behavior. Captain Foster, Admiral Chen said without taking her eyes off Kevin. I want this man to stay right here. Do not let him leave. I will deal with him after I speak with Dr. Hayes. Kevin's confident smile faded. Wait. What's going on? Who is Dr. Hayes? Admiral Chen ignored him and continued walking. She reached room 3 and knocked on the door before entering. Lisa was sitting in the same chair reading something on a tablet that Captain Foster had brought her. When she saw Admiral Chen, she smiled and stood up. Hello, Grace. Lisa, are you all right? Did anyone hurt you? I'm fine. Captain Foster and Officer Miller treated me well once they understood the situation. Admiral Chen looked Lisa up and down, checking for any signs of harm. I came as soon as I got the call. I can't believe this happened. It's not the first time, Lisa said quietly. And it probably won't be the last. Admiral Chen's face grew even more serious. Tell me exactly what happened. Lisa explained her visit to Stellar Electronics. She told Admiral Chen about Kevin's suspicions, his accusations, and the arrest. She spoke calmly without anger or emotion. When Lisa finished, Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, That man has no idea what he's done. No, he doesn't. Lisa, I need to ask you something. Were you there on official business? Lisa nodded. I was examining the quantum processors for the new Defense Grid project. The ones they had on display are the same model we're planning to use for the outer colonies. Admiral Chen closed her eyes and shook her head. So you were arrested while working on a project that could save millions of lives. It looks that way. I think it's time that Mr. Walsh learned who you really are. Lisa and Admiral Chen walked back to the lobby together. Captain Foster and Officer Miller were waiting there along with Kevin Walsh. Kevin was pacing back and forth, looking confused and angry. Finally, Kevin said when he saw them, "Can someone please tell me what's going on? I reported a crime. I did my civic duty. Why am I being treated like I'm the criminal here?" Admiral Chen stepped forward. "Mr. Walsh, let me introduce you to the woman you had arrested. This is Dr. Lisa Marie Hayes." Kevin looked at Lisa and shrugged. "Okay, so she's a doctor. That doesn't change what I saw in my store. Dr. Hayes is not just any doctor, Mr. Walsh. She is the leading xenotechnology engineer in the colonial government. She has more security clearances than anyone in this room, including myself." Kevin's expression started to change. "Xenotechnology?" "Yes. Dr. Hayes specializes in studying and adapting alien technology for human use. She has been doing this work since she was 19 years old. But she's so young. Dr. Hayes graduated from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology at age 16. With degrees in physics and engineering, she earned her doctorate in xenotechnology at 19. She is now 24 years old and has already changed the course of human history." Kevin looked back and forth between Admiral Chen and Lisa. "I don't understand." Admiral Chen's voice became very serious. "Mr. Walsh, 5 years ago humanity was losing a war. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 12 human colonies. They had better weapons, better ships, better technology. We were facing complete defeat." Kevin nodded slowly. "Everyone in the colonies knew about the Zephyrian War. Dr. Hayes changed that. She took captured Zephyrian technology and figured out how it worked. Then she made it better. She created the Harmony drive system that powers our fastest ships. She developed the quantum shields that protect our colonies. She designed the neural interface systems that let our pilots fly better than any Zephyrian." Kevin's face was getting pale. The war ended because of Dr. Hayes. The Zephyrians surrendered because they could not match human technology anymore, and that technology came from the mind of the woman you thought was a shoplifter. Lisa stepped forward. "Mr. Walsh, those quantum processors in your store? I helped design the basic technology that makes them work. The holographic displays. My team created the projection systems, the neural interfaces. I wrote the software that runs them." Kevin stared at her. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "Dr. Hayes was in your store doing research for her current project," Admiral Chen continued. "She is designing a new defense system that will protect all the outer colonies from attack. The equipment she was looking at will be part of that system." But she looked like," Kevin started to say, then stopped. "She looked like what, Mr. Walsh?" Admiral Chen asked. Her voice was very quiet and very dangerous. Kevin didn't answer. "Dr. Hayes saves human lives every day with her work. Right now she is working on 3 different projects that will protect millions of people. She has received the Colonial Medal of Honor, the Science Achievement Award, and the Humanities Service Cross. She has been personally thanked by the Colonial Council for her service to our species." Lisa watched Kevin's face as the full weight of his mistake began to sink in. "Looked sick." "The woman you arrested for shoplifting," Admiral Chen said, "is the person who saved humanity from extinction. She is the reason you are alive today. She is the reason your store exists. She is the reason this colony exists." Kevin looked at Lisa with wide, frightened eyes. I didn't know." "No," Lisa said gently. "You didn't know. You saw a young, black woman in old clothes and you made assumptions. You decided I didn't belong in your store. You decided I must be a criminal." "I'm sorry," Kevin whispered. "Mr. Walsh," Admiral Chen said, "you have arrested the most important scientist in human space. You have embarrassed the Colonial Security Service. You have wasted the time of critical personnel, and you have committed a serious act of discrimination." Kevin looked around the room. Captain Foster and Officer Miller were staring at him with disgust. Admiral Chen looked like she wanted to throw him in jail. And Lisa, the woman he had wronged, was looking at him with something that might have been pity. "What happens now?" Kevin asked. Admiral Chen looked at Lisa. "That depends on Dr. Hayes. She can press charges if she wants to. She can have you arrested. She can destroy your life with a single phone call. Everyone in the room looked at Lisa, waiting to see what she would do. The most powerful woman in the colonial government had been humiliated and wrongly arrested. She had every right to demand justice. Lisa looked at Kevin for a long moment. Then she made a decision that would surprise everyone. Lisa looked at Kevin Walsh for a long moment. The room was completely quiet. Everyone was waiting to see what she would do to the man who had wronged her so badly. "Mr. Walsh," Lisa said finally, "I want to tell you a story. It's about a little girl who lost everything when she was 12 years old." Kevin nodded nervously, not sure what was coming. This little girl lived in Detroit with her parents. Her father worked in a factory. Her mother cleaned office buildings at night. They didn't have much money, but they were happy. Lisa walked over to the window and looked outside. Then the Zephyrians attacked Earth. Detroit was one of the first cities they hit. The girl's parents were killed in the bombing. She was found 3 days later in the basement of her destroyed house. Admiral Chen watched Lisa with sad eyes. She knew this story, but it was painful to hear every time. The girl was sent to live with her aunt in Boston. Her aunt was kind, but she was also poor. There was no money for good schools or nice clothes. The girl wore hand-me-down clothes that didn't fit right. She looked different from the other children. She was black in a mostly white neighborhood. Lisa turned back to face Kevin. "Do you know what those children said to her, Mr. Walsh? They said she didn't belong. They said she was probably a thief. They said she should go back where she came from." Kevin's face was red with shame. But this little girl was special. She was very, very smart. She could understand things that adults couldn't understand. By the time she was 14, she was reading college textbooks. By 15, she was taking classes at the local university. Lisa sat back down in her chair. The professors at first didn't want to teach her. A young black girl who dressed poorly and spoke quietly. They thought she was wasting their time. But then she started solving problems that had puzzled them for years. She started asking questions that made them think in new ways. Admiral Chen nodded. "I remember when Lisa first came to my attention. She was 16 and had just published a paper that changed how we think about faster-than-light travel. The other scientists didn't believe a teenager could have written it. They made her prove it," Lisa continued, "over and over again. Every time she had a new idea, she had to work twice as hard as everyone else to prove she was right. Not because her ideas were wrong, but because of who she was, young, black, poor, different." Kevin was looking down at his hands now. When the Zephyrian War started getting worse, the colonial government was desperate. They had tried everything. All their best scientists and engineers couldn't figure out how to fight the alien technology. Ships were being destroyed. Colonies were falling. Millions of people were dying. Lisa's voice became stronger. Someone remembered the young woman who had been writing papers about alien technology theory. The one who had been asking strange questions about how different species might think about physics. They brought her to the research facility when she was 19 years old. The other scientists laughed when they saw her, Admiral Chen added. They couldn't believe the government was asking a black teenager to save humanity. They gave her the worst lab, the oldest equipment, and the most impossible assignments. But she did it anyway, Lisa said. She worked 20 hours a day. She studied every piece of Zephyrian technology they could capture. She learned their language, their mathematics, their way of thinking about the universe. Lisa stood up and walked over to Kevin. "Do you want to know the secret, Mr. Walsh? The secret that saved humanity?" Kevin looked up at her and nodded. The Zephyrians were individually smarter than humans, stronger, more advanced. But they all thought the same way. They came from one planet, one culture, one way of seeing the world. When they solved problems, they always used the same methods. Lisa smiled slightly. "But humans are different. We come from many backgrounds, many cultures, many ways of thinking. A poor black girl from Detroit could see solutions that rich white scientists from Harvard could not see. Not because she was smarter, but because she was different. I took their technology and looked at it with fresh eyes," Lisa continued. "I asked questions that no Zephyrian would ever think to ask. I combined their science with human creativity, with ideas from different cultures, with approaches that came from growing up poor and having to make things work with limited resources. Admiral Chen stepped forward. Dr. Hayes didn't just reverse engineer Zephyrian technology. She improved it, made it better than the original. The Zephyrians had been winning the war because they were more advanced. Suddenly, humans had technology that was even more advanced than theirs. The Harmony drive was based on an idea I got from watching my aunt fix her old car with spare parts, Lisa said. The quantum shields came from a mathematical concept I learned studying African geometric patterns. The neural interfaces were inspired by meditation techniques I learned from a Buddhist monk who worked at the university. Kevin was staring at her with amazement. Humanity won the war because we are not all the same, Lisa said. We won because a poor black girl could think thoughts that rich white men could not think. We won because our diversity is our strength. Lisa sat back down. After the war ended, I received many awards. I was honored by presidents and admirals. I was given medals and titles. But do you know what also happened? Kevin shook his head. I still got stopped by security guards in stores. I still had people assume I was in the wrong place. I still had to prove myself over and over again. Even after saving humanity, some people still saw only my skin color and my old clothes. The room was completely silent. So now I work on new projects. I design systems to protect the colonies. I research new technologies that will help humanity explore the galaxy. And sometimes, I go to stores to look at equipment for my projects. And sometimes store managers call the police on me. Lisa looked directly at Kevin. Mr. Walsh, you saw a young black woman in old clothes and you made assumptions. You decided I was a criminal before I had done anything wrong. You didn't see Dr. Lisa Hayes, savior of humanity. You saw someone you thought didn't belong. Kevin's voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry is not enough. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Lisa stood up and walked toward the door. Admiral Chen, I think it's time we left. I have work to do. Admiral Chen nodded and followed her. At the door, Lisa turned back to Kevin one last time. Mr. Walsh, I could destroy your life. I could have you arrested. I could make sure you never work again. But that would not change anything. That would not make you a better person. That would not help other people who face the same treatment I face today. Lisa opened the door. Instead, I'm going to give you a choice. You can go back to your store and continue being the same person you were today. Or you can learn from this experience and become someone better. What do you mean? Kevin asked. Lisa smiled. I mean, I'm going to offer you a job. Kevin Walsh stared at Lisa with complete confusion. A job? You want to give me a job? After what I did to you? Lisa nodded. That's exactly what I'm offering. I don't understand, Kevin said. I arrested you. I humiliated you. I treated you terribly. Why would you want to help me? Admiral Chen looked just as surprised as Kevin. She had expected Lisa to demand justice, maybe even criminal charges. This was not what anyone had expected. Mr. Walsh, Lisa said, punishing you will not solve the real problem. Destroying your life will not help the next person who faces what I face today. But maybe if you learn from this experience, you can help prevent it from happening to others. Captain Foster stepped forward. Dr. Hayes, with all due respect, Mr. Walsh committed a serious crime. He racially profiled you. He had you falsely arrested. There should be consequences. There will be consequences, Lisa said. But not the kind you're thinking of. She turned back to Kevin. Mr. Walsh, your actions today will be reported to Colonial Command. The incident will be investigated. Your store's corporate headquarters will be notified. You will probably lose your job at Stellar Electronics. Kevin's face went white. I have a family. My wife. My 2 kids. If I lose my job... I know, Lisa said quietly. That's why I'm offering you something different. Admiral Chen frowned. Lisa, what are you planning? I want Mr. Walsh to work for the Colonial Diversity Initiative. It's a new program I've been developing. We need someone who understands how discrimination happens. Someone who has made these mistakes and learned from them. Kevin looked confused. What kind of work? Training, Lisa said. teaching store managers, security officers, and business owners how to recognize their own prejudices, helping them understand why assumptions based on appearance are wrong and dangerous. Officer Miller spoke up for the first time. You want him to teach other people not to be racist? After what he just did? Who better to teach it than someone who has lived it? Lisa replied. Someone who has made the mistake and seen the consequences. Someone who can speak from personal experience about how wrong assumptions can be. Lisa walked over to the window again. 6 months ago, I proposed the diversity initiative to the Colonial Council. They approved funding for it last month. We're going to train people across all the colonies about treating everyone with respect, regardless of how they look or where they come from. Admiral Chen was beginning to understand. And you think Kevin could be effective at this? I think Kevin could be very effective. He made the same mistake that thousands of people make every day, but today he learned the consequences. He learned that appearances can be completely wrong. He learned that his assumptions almost caused a major incident. Lisa turned back to Kevin. The question is, are you willing to learn? Are you willing to admit that you were wrong? Are you willing to work to make sure other people don't make the same mistake? Kevin was quiet for a long time. Lisa could see him thinking, struggling with the offer. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Hayes, what you're offering, it's more than I deserve. After what I did to you, you should hate me, you should want me punished. Hate doesn't solve problems, Mr. Walsh. Punishment doesn't change hearts, but education can. Understanding can. People working together to build something better can. Kevin looked around the room. Captain Foster was still angry with him. Officer. Miller looked disgusted. Admiral Chen was watching him carefully, waiting to see what he would say. If I took this job, Kevin said slowly, what would I have to do? Lisa sat down across from him. You would travel to different colonies and tell your story. You would explain to business owners and managers how easy it is to make wrong assumptions. You would help them understand that people like me, people who might look poor or different, might actually be their most important customers. You would also work with security personnel, Admiral Chen added. Help them understand that skin color is not a reason for suspicion, that old clothes don't make someone a criminal, that young people can be brilliant scientists. Lisa nodded. And you would work with me to develop new training programs. Help me understand how prejudice works in the minds of people who don't think they're prejudiced. Help me figure out how to change those thought patterns. Kevin was quiet again. Then, he asked, why are you doing this, really? I know what you said about solving problems, but there has to be more to it. Lisa smiled sadly. Mr. Walsh, do you have children? Yes, a son who's 8 and a daughter who's 6. What do you want their world to be like when they grow up, Kevin? Thought about it. I want them to be safe. I want them to be happy. I want them to have opportunities to succeed. I want the same thing, Lisa said, not just for your children, but for all children. Black children, white children, alien children, if we ever have them living among us. I want a world where a young girl who loses her parents doesn't have to prove herself twice as hard as everyone else just because of the color of her skin. Lisa stood up. I became a scientist to solve problems. The Zephyrian War was one problem. Faster-than-light travel was another problem. Now I'm trying to solve a different kind of problem. The problem of people judging each other without really seeing each other. Admiral Chen looked at her watch. Lisa, we should go. You have a meeting with the Colonial Council tomorrow about the Defense Grid project. Lisa nodded, then looked at Kevin one more time. Mr. Walsh, I'm going to leave now. Take some time to think about my offer. If you decide you want to take the job, contact Admiral Chen's office. If you decide you don't want it, that's your choice too. What happens if I say no? Kevin asked. Then you face the normal consequences of your actions, Admiral Chen said, firmly. Criminal charges for false arrest and racial profiling, civil lawsuit from Dr. Hayes, loss of your job and probably any future employment in retail or security. Kevin swallowed hard. And if I say yes? Then you get a chance to make things right, Lisa said. You get a chance to turn the worst mistake of your life into something that helps other people. You get a chance to make sure your children grow up in a better world than the one that exists today. Lisa walked toward the door, then paused. There's one more thing, Mr. Walsh. If you take this job, you'll be working directly with me. You'll see me in meetings, in planning sessions, in training programs. You'll have to look at me every day and remember what you did today. Can you handle that? Kevin looked at her for a long moment. Dr. Hayes, if you can forgive me enough to offer me this chance, then I can handle working with you. The question is whether I deserve it. Everyone deserves a second chance, Mr. Walsh. The question is what you do with it. Lisa and Admiral Chen left the security station together. Behind them, Kevin Walsh sat alone in the lobby thinking about the choice he had to make. Outside, the sun was setting over Neo Angeles, ending one of the most important days in his life. 6 months later, Kevin Walsh stood in front of a room full of business owners on the colony of New Terra. He wore a clean suit and held a tablet computer with his presentation notes. Behind him, a large screen showed pictures of the Colonial Diversity Initiative. My name is Kevin Walsh, he said to the audience. 6 months ago, I was the manager of an electronics store. I thought I was a good person. I thought I was doing my job correctly. Then I made the biggest mistake of my life. The room was quiet. Everyone was listening carefully. I saw a young black woman in my store and I decided she was a criminal. I didn't talk to her. I didn't ask her questions. I just looked at her old clothes and her skin color and made up my mind about who she was. Kevin clicked to the next slide. It showed a picture of Lisa Hayes receiving the Colonial Medal of Honor. This is the woman I had arrested for shoplifting. Her name is Dr. Lisa Hayes. She is the scientist who saved humanity from the Zephyrian War. She is the person who designed the technology that protects this colony. She is one of the most important people in human space. Several people in the audience gasped. They had heard of Dr. Hayes, but they had never seen her picture before. I arrested the woman who saved my life. I arrested the person who made it possible for my children to grow up safe and free. I did this because I judged her by her appearance instead of giving her the respect that every person deserves. Kevin clicked to the next slide. Dr. Hayes could have destroyed my life. She could have had me thrown in prison. Instead, she offered me a job. She gave me a chance to learn from my mistake and help other people avoid making the same one. Woman in the front row raised her hand. Mr. Walsh, how do we know we won't make the same mistake you did? Kevin nodded. That's a very good question. The truth is, we all have prejudices. We all make quick judgments about people based on how they look. The difference is whether we act on those judgments or whether we stop and think. He clicked to a new slide that showed statistics about discrimination incidents across the colonies. Every month, there are hundreds of cases like mine. People being treated badly because of their skin color, their clothes, their age, or their accent. Most of the time, these people are not famous scientists. They are just ordinary citizens who deserve to be treated with respect. Kevin walked closer to the audience. I want to tell you about some of the other cases we've investigated. Last month on the colony of New Phoenix, a security guard stopped a young woman for acting suspicious. She was actually an engineer checking the safety systems in a shopping center. Her suspicious behavior was taking notes about fire exits and structural supports. The audience was very attentive now. On the colony of Haven, a restaurant manager refused to serve an older man because he looked homeless. That man was a retired admiral who had been working in his garden and stopped for lunch on his way home. Kevin clicked to another slide. These incidents don't just hurt the people who are discriminated against. They hurt our entire society. When we judge people by their appearance, we miss opportunities. We waste talent. We make enemies instead of friends. A man in the back of the room raised his hand. What are you asking us to do? I'm asking you to train your employees to treat every customer with respect. I'm asking you to create policies that prevent discrimination. I'm asking you to think before you make assumptions about people. Kevin clicked to a slide that showed the Colonial Diversity Initiative logo. Dr. Hayes and I have developed a simple training program. It takes just 2 hours, and it can change how your employees think about customer service. After the presentation, Kevin answered questions for another hour. When the meeting was over, most of the business owners signed up for the training program. Kevin packed up his materials and headed back to his hotel. In his room, he made a video call to Dr. Hayes, who was working late in her laboratory on the colony of New Earth. "How did it go?" Lisa asked. She was wearing a lab coat and safety glasses, surrounded by complex equipment. "Very well. We got 23 businesses to sign up for training. That's the best response we've had so far." Lisa smiled. "That's excellent news. How are you feeling about the work?" Kevin thought about it. "It's hard sometimes, admitting what I did in front of strangers, talking about my mistakes over and over. But it's also rewarding. When I see people's faces change during the presentation, when I see them start to understand, it makes it worth it. I'm proud of you, Kevin. You've become one of our best trainers." Kevin felt a warm feeling in his chest. 6 months ago, he never would have imagined that Dr. Lisa Hayes would say she was proud of him. "Lisa, I have some news to share with you. The Zephyrian delegation has asked for a meeting about the diversity initiative." Lisa raised her eyebrows. "The Zephyrians, what do they want?" "They want to learn about our program. Apparently, they're having problems with discrimination between different Zephyrian subspecies. They think our human approach might help them." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "That's unexpected. The species that once tried to conquer us is asking for our help with social problems." "It gets better," Kevin said. "They specifically asked if you would be willing to meet with them. They want to learn from the person who defeated them in war and is now working for peace." Lisa laughed softly. 6 months ago, you arrested me for shopping while black. Now I'm going to teach our former enemies about tolerance and understanding. Life is strange sometimes." "Speaking of strange," Kevin said, "I got a call from my old boss at Stellar Electronics today." "Oh? What did he want?" "The company has decided to implement diversity training at all their stores. They want me to design the program for them." Lisa grinned. "So you're going back to train the people you used to work with?" "It looks that way, including the security company that arrested you. Officer Miller has volunteered to help with the training. He says what happened that day changed how he thinks about his job." Lisa nodded approvingly. "People can change, Kevin. That's what gives me hope for the future." Kevin looked out his hotel window at the busy streets of New Terra. People of all different backgrounds were walking together, shopping together, working together. Human colonies had become places where diversity was celebrated instead of feared. "Lisa, can I ask you something?" "Of course. When you first offered me this job, did you really think I could change? Or were you just hoping for the best?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Kevin, I've learned something important in my work as a scientist. The most amazing discoveries come from the most unlikely sources. A poor girl from Detroit found the key to defeating an alien empire. A racist store manager became one of our best diversity trainers. When we stop judging people by their past and start believing in their potential, incredible things can happen." Kevin smiled. "Thank you, Lisa, for everything. Thank you too, Kevin, for proving that people can change, for showing that forgiveness can be more powerful than punishment, for helping build a better world for all our children." As Kevin ended the call, he thought about his own children. His 8-year-old son and 6-year-old daughter were growing up in a different world than the one he had known. A world where people were judged by their character instead of their appearance. A world where diversity was strength instead of division. Outside his window, the lights of New Terra sparkled like stars. Somewhere among those lights, people of different backgrounds were working together, learning from each other, building a future that was better than the past. And in a laboratory far away, Dr. Lisa Hayes was designing new technologies that would continue to protect and improve that future. The little girl who had lost everything had grown up to save everyone. The man who had almost destroyed his life with prejudice had found redemption in service to others. It was, Kevin thought, a very human story. A story of mistakes and forgiveness, of learning and growing, of turning the worst moments into the best opportunities. It was the kind of story that made humanity special in a galaxy, full of different species. It was the kind of story that gave hope for tomorrow.